The Wheel of Time series is now on Amazon Prime, and as we've just read Eye of the World, we're taking a look at the series and looking at it from the perspective of having just read the book, understanding why they may have made some of the changes they did, and whether or not those things actually work in the context of what Amazon is trying to do. We hope you'll stick around and follow our discussion, because I think it'll be... Hello and welcome to the Doctors Who podcast. My name is Chris.
My name is Brian.
And I'm Chip.
That sounded weird.
It's a new year.
So. It's a new year. Brian's in the middle.
I don't know what's going on.
What are we going to do? We thought, having just read Eye of the World, partly in anticipation of the Wheel of Time series airing, that it would be kind of fun to look at Season 1, which covers Eye of the World, and just kind of compare notes based on what we read against what we saw. So tonight we're going to be covering episodes 1 through 4 of the series on Amazon Prime. If you haven't seen it and you would like to not be spoiled, this would be a great time to stop watching. That enough time for them to stop?
I think so.
I think they would stop by now.
All right. So, gentlemen, overall, high level, what do you think?
Yeah. I think for me it comes down to two different things. I would say you have two values, the first of which is going to be a similarity to the book score, and I would also say entertainment score. Okay. I think the two are oftentimes together, but in this case I'm going to split them up because I would score them differently.
Okay.
And we can get into this more a little bit later, but I think there were some entertaining moments, and I thought that there was some good... I had no clue how they were going to break. So we're talking about the first 4 episodes. Mm-hmm. You know, I was not sure how they were going to be able to take half a season and cover so much of the book. And I think they, to a certain degree, accomplished that. I think there were some things I wish they would have done instead, as far as scenes within the show. And there were some things I wish they would have changed. But I think it was definitely entertaining in parts. It led me to want to actually reread certain passages, but also at the same time it was different enough from the book where I wouldn't rate it highly because just from the book perspective, because I thought Jordan did the writing better than the show. So those are my two values. I thought it was entertaining, but also definitely different than the books.
For me, I really wanted to like it more than I did, and I think my expectations may have been higher than they should have been. But I really struggle with the pacing, especially in the first episode. It just felt so hurried and so rushed. And I know that I think Rafe did an interview, and I don't remember with who, but he talked about how originally they'd planned 10 episodes with a 2-hour pilot. Well, cutting out a 2-hour pilot, and then the next 2 episodes, they just cut 4 hours of runtime out of their show. So I realized that a lot of that played into what happened with episode 1. So I don't know how much of it they even shot before those changes came into play. So, and it feels like just a mashed up, it's, this is this person, this is this person, this is this person, and all of a sudden the town gets attacked and they're on the run. But things got better, episodes 2 through 4. The pacing slowed down a little bit. We got to know the characters a little bit more. And for the most part, I understand the changes, and they can't hit everything that they hit in the book, or they 20 seasons or 20 episodes wouldn't have covered it. But some of the changes I hated, and this was in the first episode too. The whole Perrin and his wife, that was never in the book, and I know they're trying to establish character, but knowing how Perrin evolves as a character through the rest of the books, it just makes me wonder how they're going to tie that event back into his psyche and mentality. I think there's other ways they could have shown it, and it wouldn't even, if they would have done with Master Luhan or some other character that's already in the books that he accidentally killed, then maybe that would have worked fine too. But kind of knowing Perrin's story arc across the entire series, it feels like it just kind of wrecked his character right out of the gate. And I'm hopefully they've got a plan for it, but for the other changes and taking out Barrelon and some of the other places they visit, that makes complete sense to they've got to accelerate the storytelling to some level. But we can talk about this later, but I think we need to talk about how Amazon influences the production too.
Yeah.
On how I think it's now every series they do is 8 episodes, and it has a runtime of so many minutes because that's what their algorithm tells them people watch.
Ah,
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay. So I know that they said originally they thought they could do the whole story in 8 seasons. I wonder if this changes that.
Potentially.
I'm trying
to think what's an Amazon series that's run more than 3 or 4 seasons.
I have no idea.
I don't know that there is one yet.
Would you say that like The Expanse? I suppose The Expanse was on a different platform before.
Yeah,
it
so
got
that's
to
technically
Amazon.
season 6.
Yeah.
But 3 of them were with Amazon.
Right.
And then Amazon's pushing to end that series.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
There's a big fan base that wants it to continue, but and it may continue as like a movie series or something else. But
It'd be funny if Netflix bought it.
Take that back, thank you.
Yeah, I know.
Oh no, it wasn't Netflix originally. It was
Sci-Fi.
Yeah.
it was another
Yep.
sci-fi series that they canceled when they had something good and didn't realize it.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. The algorithm part. I'm not surprised at all hearing that. But
I was just kind of reading some articles about that earlier, and it was basically all the metrics show that people watch from, they've got to have like an action scene within the first 2 minutes, and they have to run this many minutes, and we're not going to run more than 8 episodes because we want to retain the audience. So we want high numbers of viewers, not necessarily a smaller number of the niche viewers that really love the series. They want to want to go for numbers.
That's interesting.
Because that sells advertising and memberships and everything else.
So from my perspective, I'm going to start off by saying I'm usually pretty easy to entertain. Whether it's the Zack Snyder DC movies or what have you, things that people generally trash. I'm like, oh no, that had some redeeming qualities. I enjoyed myself, right? And I did enjoy this. I agree that the pacing in episode 1 was just, there was too much going on, and we know why. I understand some of the decisions they made with, Matt and his family, his parents, his mom being a drunk and his dad being a womanizer in a small village and stuff like that. It's like, okay, they're definitely trying to stay within their own lane. At the same time, they're trying to darken things up because that's what's going to draw in those Game of Thrones viewers. Probably also plays into that algorithm you were talking about somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So I understand why they did that. I understand why they skipped the locations. I even understand why they gave more time to Logain than what we saw in the book, which I liked. I think the actor is phenomenal. I think the arc that they gave him was fascinating, and especially, sorry Brian, going in and knowing where he comes in later in the story. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
I think this establishes him more out of the gate.
Well, and where in a book you can establish him over a series of books, and over time you've got a limited amount of time to establish this world and the things that different people can do in it. So I like what they did with Logain.
Yeah, and I think the casting was pretty spot on. I think Moraine.
Yeah, okay. I was like, I don't know
Moraine. I mixed Morgase and Moraine.
Morgase isn't even in this.
No, she's not. She's, yeah. But the casting, like Daniel Henney, I think is fabulous. And there was some initial nitpicking when the first, the first official screenshots or the first official photos came out, and they're like, oh, the costumes look so neat and they look so clean. I like what they did when they started out neat, and by the time you get 3 or 4 episodes in, they're dirtied up because they've been on the road and they've been traveling and they've been fighting and they've been, just doing all of these things. So I like the fact that as the series progresses, it seems like everything gets more lived in. But yeah, that's overall, I loved it. I know at least 3 people who watched it and dug it and were like, okay, I need to read the books now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think from that perspective, that's a total win.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
I like the racial diversity of the cast.
Yes.
So it feels like a real established world, multicultural world. Whereas, that's probably one of my big gripes in Lord of the Rings is it's very white.
yes.
And Game of Thrones had a little color, but it was still pretty white.
Mm-hmm.
But
And I would actually disagree with you on that, just from the perspective of, in the entire beginning of the book, Robert Jordan painted this as a back river, small town, and if you've ever been to a small town, there is very little diversity. If you go back to your hometown, how much diversity is there? I mean, there's some.
I mean,
West Liberty's got the highest percentage of Latinos in, I think, the country.
Well, West Liberty, but like if you're
that's
talking,
right.
oh, okay, that's fair. That's fair. But I just think
Laotian,
what
too.
they really missed out on, and I wish they would have done this, where I wish they would have started out, because there's nothing better than to see people who are able to change their worldview as they leave their small town and then come into a world that is a lot more diverse than they are, because then there is more acceptance as far as this is the world around them. But it seemed like they were just as diverse in this small town that hadn't seen people move in or out in generations as the rest of the world.
But what it achieved to me was that because of what they did there, Rand looked so different than everybody else. He was taller, he had red hair, his complexion was lighter, he stood out.
And I also think there's something to be said for, with the diversity aspect. Like, there are now people of different race, ethnicity, nationality who can now see themselves in some of these prominent roles and relate to those characters. There are Asian kids that can relate to Lan maybe more than they could have if he was a stoic, bulky white dude.
Yeah.
I mean, and Robert Jordan, I don't think ever specified skin color.
He didn't. Although when I read it, I will admit that when I pictured people from the Two Rivers, I actually pictured them as Indian. Strangely enough.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So when I read the book,
American
I was
Indian.
No, as in like India, Indian.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's because of like that's who I work with, or if, but like just reading it, it just felt like when they talked about the braids, you see the women from India with the long braids, and just
I gotcha.
Someone at work would like kind of pull, and that's when you knew she had a question, when she would pull on her braids. So it's just, to me, it just felt like they were built in India.
Yeah.
So, and it might have been the color of my TV. Like, how you can change it from like sport to what neutral or custom or whatever. Rand's hair was more brown on my TV. I don't know if I was kind of hoping for like a whole bunch of people from India plus an Irish person.
Well, why don't we take a minute and just look at Rand?
Let's take. Good idea.
His hair looks pretty red there.
Yeah.
Definitely more red than my TV. I'll give you that.
Fair. Okay. But I mean, well, if we go back to this for a little bit, right? I think I like the fact that from the gate, they had to find a way to make these 3 main characters. I guess 5 if you count Egwene and Nynaeve.
Yeah.
I think that's how the show says it.
Yeah.
Yep.
They need to make these characters compelling out of the gate. You can't wait a season and a half to engage one of your main characters. Right. So I understand that. Was the thing with Perrin's wife the best idea? Perhaps not. But it is what it is, and I don't think it necessarily kills anything that's going to come into the future. And I think, especially since the showrunner said we should treat this more as a different turning of the wheel and not a verbatim retelling of the books, because this comes straight out, and it says, I'm gonna come back to us here for a second here. It says straight out, the Dragon Reborn might be any one of you 4 or 5.
And they plant a lot of those seeds.
Like you see Matt, Tom and Rand, and you see Matt acting like he is with the dagger, and Tom's like,
I think he's channeling.
I think he might be channeling because he reminds me of my nephew Owen when he was starting to slide. And then you have, at the very end of episode 4, you have Naive. God. I'm trying to remember how the show pronounced it instead of how I've been saying it in my head for years.
For 30
but
years.
you have her just blowing the roof off of this place.
And healing everybody.
And you're like, oh, maybe she's it. And
because that even captures Logain's attention. When he's like, oh, what's up with her?
And even as somebody who's read the books, it has me like,
did they change
Are they going to change this? Is this going to be somebody else? And
I asked myself that a couple of times, and then it's like, they can't, can they?
Right.
Can they do that?
But that would fundamentally change the book, wouldn't it?
It would.
Yeah.
Like that would literally be a complete departure.
It really does a great job of even somebody who's read the books watching this. They're like, I don't really know what's going to happen here.
Well, they even have Egwene and Moraine teaching Egwene about the one power and channeling. Yeah. So she's got the ability. The only one that we don't suspect, I guess, Perrin, but we kind of see his arc a little bit differently, and they handle that differently than the book.
Yeah.
Well, that happened earlier in the. He got the wolf showed up. At the battle because he was injured, and the wolf came up and licked his wound, and we don't know what happened. But
that's right. And then
so we start to see something there,
and
then and Rand is the only other one that we don't see really doing anything yet.
Right.
Until he did, but he broke the door down, and when the Dark Friend confronted him, so they kind of lay seeds for all of them, really.
True. Yes, that's a good point. One thing I really liked was I wasn't sure how the Trollocs were going to look. And, there was some very brief glimpses and things like that. And, people online, as people online do, were complaining that they looked bad and they looked CGI'd and they didn't look great. But if we look at this...
there's no CGI there.
That
looks pretty well costumed.
That's freaking epic. I mean, because
I
Jordan
like
goes...
Guar.
Yeah. Jordan goes in and talks about how they look different. Like the one on the left clearly has like a beak and
features.
feathers and all this, and the guy on the right is
like a boar,
ugly.
Goat.
And there's...
I think I had a college classmate that looked like him.
And there's Lan Mandragoran being cool as a cucumber. So
I honestly, I really like the Trollocs. I thought they got a lot of hate online, and I don't really get that one.
Yeah.
I thought they were...
They seem very friendly.
I don't think this looks bad, but I think there's some bad CGI and points of it too in there. But that goes to budget and what they were able to work with. And I can look past bad special effects and bad CGI if the story's good.
Speaking of that, though, I really liked how they portrayed the weaving. And when you saw Logain weave and you saw like the black, like for the taint, I thought that was a really cool touch.
Then tying into Who's the Dragon, did Moraine help heal Matt? I can't remember what episode that was, but
that was after 4. I think.
Yeah, but there's still some black elements there too that make you wonder. It's like, who is Matt really? Channeling?
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I think going through the first 4 episodes, there's a heavy departure from the book. Obviously, the story in broad strokes is still intact, but you have a lot more time. Like you have, them going to the Aes Sedai camp with Logain and. Moraine helping to shield him, and you've got him like breaking free when his army attacks, and all this stuff that doesn't necessarily have. That was episode 4, right?
Yeah, that was. Yeah.
Okay. And you've got all these things that happen that don't occur in the books, but I think from a visual medium and a visual story medium, not median, and a visual storytelling perspective, I think those things work.
Yeah. The other thing that I thought he did a really good job with on this is establishing the White Cloaks as just a vicious, evil sect.
Yes.
But not evil in the sense that they think they're doing the right thing.
Zealots.
They think they're doing religious zealots.
Yeah.
They were just
but Valda is just sinister.
Emond Valda, holy smokes.
They were just as punchable as they were in the books.
Yeah. I think even more
Maybe more so.
Because I think the Aes Sedai hunting and the rings that he's collecting, it's like, that's like collecting ears or scalps, It's like, that's...
Or like Boba Fett collecting like Wookiee braids from the pelts, right? Yeah. So, yeah. So I think we're going to cover episodes 5 through 8 next time, which encompasses the first season, and I think there's going to be some more intense discussion on the second half of the season, because some of the deviations that we see don't make sense now, but I'm wondering if they will going forward.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Overall, first 4 episodes, I enjoyed. I know I didn't have as many reservations as the two of you did, but like I said, I'm easy to please.
I'll leave that one right there.
For better or worse.
No comment.
Gonna make a comment about my wife.
I was thinking about it, and then I realized we were recording, so...
She's never gonna watch it.
That's a good point.
She made that comment the other day. She's like, I've never watched anything you've recorded. It's okay.
That's all right.
It's okay.
That's all right.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Please join us next time as we encounter... No, that's the wrong word. As we discuss... We'll discuss episodes 5 through 8. It's the mead, I swear.
Sorry.
It's good.
Don't be apologizing,
It's tasty.
Chip. It's good.
I like it.
Please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Please use the comment section. Tell us what you did like, what you didn't like. Anything we missed that we should have covered, and we'll be happy to continue the conversation down there. And until next time...
Alonzi.